so much for joining us today on Feelin Good, sponsored by Warren County Community Services. I'm your host, Shelly Abrams, and I am so delighted today to introduce you to several very inspiring people who I also call my friends. And I am going to kind of kick off a little discussion with them about what they've been doing recently during the quarantine time, which has been a very unusual time for all of us. So alphabetically, I would like to introduce to you the Reverend Herman Emmert, and he is retired from the ministry, although Herman is always ministering in some way or another. Herman is now a resident at Otterbein Senior Living. Next, I would like to introduce to you Mary Ellen Haynes, who is a retired educator, and those of us here in the Lebanon, Warren County area know Mary Ellen from all of her musical talent and expertise and teaching all of our children to love music. And then I would like to introduce to you Marla and Monica Marsh, and they currently live in Mason, and they are involved with diversity training and consulting in the local school districts. So this is a type of reunion for us because we're kind of connecting with Middletown, Mason, Lebanon, and now we're connecting with all of you who are watching. So welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today, and I'm just delighted to see all of your smiling faces on Feelin Good.
I'm feeling good too.
Good. Well, Herman, let's start with you. I mentioned that this has been a very unusual and I know a very challenging time for many people. But before we relate to current events, let me ask you to share a little bit about your background, where you're from, how long you've lived in this area, et cetera, okay?
Okay, you that are Buckeyes are not going to like what I'm about to say. I am a Hoosier. I was born in Indiana, and I attended Brazil High School in Brazil, Indiana, and then the University of Indianapolis, and then I went on to the seminary in Dayton, Ohio, where I left in 1956 and started my ministry. And it started in Indiana. I served two churches in Indianapolis, one on the east side, one on the north side, both of them United Methodist, and then moved to Ohio, where I have been all the rest of my life, serving churches in Cincinnati, Dayton, Toledo, and Middletown. And in between, I was the district superintendent of the United Methodist Church.
Very good. Okay, excellent. Well, I know Herman from working for the chamber in Middletown, and Herman and his wife moved to Middletown, and then I also know Herman from being a Rotarian in Middletown.
Right. And Leadership Middletown.
And Leadership Middleton as well. Very good.
Yes. I appreciated that more than anything. All the things I happened to be doing in Middletown, Leadership Middletown meant so much to me, Michelle.
Oh, I am so happy to hear that because it's still probably my favorite teaching experience that I had the opportunity to work with through the Chamber of Commerce.
Well, you certainly did one great job, and I appreciate that about as much as anything that happened to me while I was in the United Methodist Church at Middletown.
Oh,
yes.
Well, thanks, Herman, so much. Well, listen, let's talk to Mary Ellen for a moment then, and we'll find out Mary Ellen's background, and then we'll come back around and talk about current events. Mary Ellen, give us a little thumbnail sketch of your background.
Well, I was raised on a farm in Darke County near Greenville, Ohio. And I started my college education at Ball State, but transferred midway to the University of Texas at Austin. That's where I received my Bachelor of Music degree. We came back to Ohio. My husband was in the Air Force. It was during the Vietnam War. And after that, we came back to Ohio, where I taught in Worthington. And he finished his degree and got his master's at Ohio State University. So we came to Lebanon in 1974, where he took his first job as Warren County Agricultural Extension Agent. And we had 2 children, and I started teaching part-time music for Lebanon City Schools, which then grew into full-time, and that's where I retired after a wonderful career there. So.
And you still live in Lebanon.
Oh, yes. We've lived here for 46 years.
Very good. Excellent. Very good. Well, Mary Ellen and I have been involved in many different organizations, from Mothers Club to from Mothers Club to Boosters at the high school, and other kinds of groups that we'll talk about a little bit later. And then the Marsh twins, may I say that? I met the Marsh twins when I worked in Middletown as well. So please tell us a little bit about the 2 of you.
Well, first of all, I'll go first, since normally I don't, because Monica's the oldest, but since we're going to ABC order. First of all, Shelly, I don't know if we've ever said this to you, but Monica and I always refer to you as Ms. Middletown.
Yes.
When we were all in Middletown together, you and Pat Schaefer were partners in crime. And any project that had to be taken care of, you 2 did it, including convincing Monica and I that we too could conduct for that symphony fundraiser.
Right.
Which we did. So anyway, sitting here listening to the 2 who spoke before us, Monica and I kept nudging each other because we were finding so many connections with you. Our aunt taught at Worthington High School in the early 70s. She's passed away now, but I just talked to her husband, who's almost 90, and you wouldn't know it. He called yesterday. Her name was Lillian Macer. She taught math there at Worthington High School. One of the first, I think, African-American teachers to teach at Worthington. She was really our more like a godmother. She wasn't a blood aunt, but yeah, that was, so we connected to that quickly. But again, I am Marla Marsh. I am originally from Akron, Ohio, and I have been in Southwestern Ohio now since 1984. So Southwestern Ohio is definitely home. I was proud to say, and still proud to say, of course, that I was an educator for 30 years in the Middletown City School District, starting off teaching students with special needs, and then moving into administration for the last 24 years of my career. But I enjoy being in Middletown very much. My sister and I, she's probably going to say ditto in the end, because I'm sharing a lot of the same information. But we graduated from The Ohio State University. I heard that mentioned. And that's okay about Indiana.
It's in the Big Ten.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then we graduated from Ohio State, and then we received our master's from Wright State. We have been doing work in the area of cultural competency for the last 18 years now. And even before we knew what it was called, we knew it was important. And it's basically understanding the difference that difference makes, and building relationships with people by understanding backgrounds and where we come from.
And Marla's right. Most of my story would be ditto. My educational teaching experience is a little different. I spent about 12 years, maybe 13 years in the Middletown City School District. I taught there for, no, longer than that. I taught for 14 years, I think it was. And then I was in Middletown for a bit as an elementary principal, and then I went back as a part of it. Most of my time was at Butler Tech. And so I went back to Butler Tech and I became assistant principal at D. Russell Lee Career Center and building principal at D. Russell Lee. In my last 3 years, I supervised special services for the district for our high school and our adult students. And as we listen to people, we, like Marla was saying, we always make connections. We also did work with cultural competency at Ball State.
Yes.
So I thought that was so cool. So it's a small world.
And it's even smaller because we discovered that we live right around the corner from Shelly.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
And I mentioned to you, it was funny because when my youngest son Casey was teaching math at King's High School one day, he said, "Mom, we're having diversity training at school." He said, "Do you know the Marsh twins?" And I said, "Well, I sure do." And he said, well, Monica said she remembered me from Middletown when I was a little boy, and she gave me a big hug. I said that was so great. I loved it. So it is a small world, isn't it? Just when you bring people together. That's great.
Yes, it is.
Well, you know, with the quarantine going on, and of course the name of our show is Feelin Good, and I was thinking to myself, our viewers, you know, might be having a challenge finding moments where they're actually feeling good. And I thought maybe we might share what we've been doing during the quarantine, you know, mentioning some of the challenges, but then also maybe mentioning what the quarantine has given us an opportunity to, you know, actually discover that we might continue after things reopen. So with that being said, Herman, what would you say maybe has been your journey during the quarantine?
I think my journey probably will be different than those that we're talking with because I am at the retirement community. And believe me, there's a lot of restrictions here at Otterbein. And I have no objection to that because I know it's helpful. But I'm going through, I guess, a lot of things that maybe the rest of them aren't. My wife is in nursing, and she's in Springboro Small Homes, and I cannot see her. We've been married for 67 years, and the best I can do is go to a window. She has a phone, and I have a phone, and we try and chat. And that is terribly hard. So I'm going through some stuff that probably isn't the best, but I'm making the best of it because I know it's the best for us as health-wise is concerned. So I'm grateful for the times that I can visit with her, although I can't touch her, can't feel her, can't give her a kiss, but she's there. So I'm going through that, plus the restrictions that are here at Otterbein. And believe me, there are plenty that there are two types of restrictions going on here. One is with congregate living. And I hate to use the word fortunate, but I'm going to. Fortunate, I'm not in congregate living because I have more freedom living in a home. So living in a house, I don't have all the restrictions that those that live in congregate living do have.
Right.
But I do have many restrictions. For instance, just as an example, we can't go into the campus center. We have to do all of our activities outside of the campus center. And the restrictions have been limited just this week for those of us who are in homes. Now, the hair salon is open. Got a haircut. Yeah. I got a haircut.
You did. I was going to say you didn't know you'd appreciate the haircut.
Nobody recognized me. Nobody. And when I got my haircut, I came home. I had to look in the mirror and see what I looked like, honestly. So that's one of the real happy things that's happened here at Otterbein. I got a haircut. Okay. But there's a lot of good things happening. We do wear a mask, and we're very careful. We keep our distance of 6 feet and do all of the things we're supposed to be doing.
Right.
And all of the cafeteria food places where we eat are all closed right now. But they'll be opened up one of these days, and it'll get back to what I will be a semi-normal anyway. But things are good. I'm happy. And I just dropped it. Can you see me? Oh dear.
I can see you, but while you're fixing the camera, you're kind of frozen.
I am. Yeah.
You're kind of frozen right there. So there
Can you
you
see
go.
me now?
There you go. We can see you now.
Yeah.
Yep,
Okay.
we can see you and we can hear you. Okay, good. Perfect.
You got me okay?
We've got you perfect.
Let me tell you what I'm doing here. I'm sitting here on a chair. I have a dog that is blind and deaf.
Oh,
And she's on my lap. And so I'm trying to keep her happy while I'm talking to all of you. I'm petting her and I'm talking and trying to keep going everything the same. But I'm happy. Things are going well. And I have much to be grateful for. I have my good health and I have opportunity to, I think I'm an extrovert and I have an opportunity to make others feel good occasionally when I see them. And it's not the easiest, but we're doing our best, and it's going to be a good time.
I was just going to say that you would be the person that would be making everybody else feel better about their day. So you're a God wink for so many people.
Well, I'm trying. It's fun, and again, I have no regrets with what's happening as far as the restrictions. I know it's necessary,
Right.
and I accept it, and am glad that I can be one who can feel good that it's making me feel better because I'm not sick.
Very good.
I don't have the virus.
Well, you're making us feel good just by being here today. So thank you. Thank you so much. Mary Ellen, let's go on. And what have you been up to? I know so many things, but share with us a little bit of your journey lately.
well, at the end of January, we were fortunate enough to take a big trip to Vietnam and Cambodia. And we often comment how lucky, first of all, it was a fabulous trip. It was just, we were gone nearly a month and it was fantastic. But had we waited just a couple of weeks even, we wouldn't have been able to go.
Right.
And of course, I'm happy to tell you all that there have been no deaths from the coronavirus in the country of Vietnam.
Really?
Even though they share that long border with China. And I think they've only had like 300 cases, and it's a very crowded country. So the blessing of that is that the Vietnamese government knew about it early because China was their neighbor, and they took many precautions, and so lucky for them.
Really?
No deaths. It's just amazing. But anyway, that trip was fantastic, and little did we know that when we got home, we'd be in quarantine. So the difficult part of that is the last time I saw my mother, who is in assisted living in Union City and in great care, they've had no cases there in that facility, which I'm so grateful for. But I wasn't able to see her until 2 weeks ago. We go to her patio and we talk to her through the screen and we do social distancing that way. It's just, that's just great to be able to see her. The other thing I've been doing that's taken a lot of time, I always do a book of our trips. So that takes hours of my obsessing over this book.
Right.
And I'm working on a keynote presentation, and perhaps I'll get to do that in the fall for Shelly's Miami University group. The other thing, lots of Zoom social meetings with friends. And several years ago, I joined the Martin Luther King Coalition, and I'm on the steering committee now. And we were going to have a big seminar in March, the end of March, titled Healing Racism. And of course, we had to postpone that. Mm-hmm. So that is scheduled for the end of August, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we can do it. But in the meantime, we were kind of brainstorming what we could do. And we decided to read the book Anti-Racist by Dr. Kendi. And when we picked that book,
we didn't. I don't mean to interrupt, but I just heard of that book.
Yeah, when we picked it, it was just, we really hadn't heard much about it, but the co-host and I, she said, the co-host with me, mm-hmm. that her sister had read it and recommended it. So she said, this looks really intriguing. Let's have a book discussion. So we decided, it's a hard book to read. And we decided we would take it 3 chapters at a time. And so we have done this now for 5 weeks on a Zoom, and it's been outstanding. But I'm very glad we did it in small chunks. And I'm glad we were able to discuss it as we went along. Excuse me. So the other thing, I love gardening. And so luckily for us, April was a wonderful month, and I go after those weeds like it was my therapy. It was my therapy.
Right.
And I don't think my gardens have looked this good in a long time. So in a nutshell, if that was a nutshell, that's what I've been up to the last several months.
Very good. Very good. So many adventures, and we'll come back for a little more discussion about the Martin Luther King organization, because I had actually signed up to attend that March event. And then you had registered for the Think Regional Summit that I was chairing, as had the Marsh Twins. And our theme this year was, it just happened to be diversity, equity, and inclusion. So for the whole year planning for the summit, I had been talking to people about becoming panelists and presenters and so forth. So I had really dug in to the theme. And clearly, it's turned out to be a very timely topic, which needs our attention for sure. So it's good to hear about Mary Ellen's involvement. And then Monica and Marla, tell us about your journey and what you're up to right now.
Okay, Marla's going to make me go first now.
Okay.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mary Ellen, but I just have to say, I taped the author this morning on MSNBC giving an interview and about that book, and I said I have to read that. And so maybe we'll circle back to that a little bit more.
Okay.
But so during the quarantine, I really wasn't frustrated too much about being quarantined, to tell you the truth, because it gave me a time to relax. It gave me a time to reflect on what's important, what's not so important, that we think that we have to get done all the time. Even though we're retired, we're ripping and running quite a bit with different projects and so forth. Marla has a serious medical issue, and I've been her caregiver and whatnot. And so it just gave me some time to rest. It also gave me time to, for my brother, sister, and I are close. Our brother lives in St. Louis. We made him come here. He would die if I said this, but he's 4 years older. We just turned 58, so he's going to be 62 on the 18th. So Marla said to him, Douglas, you're in that age range. You can't be in St. Louis by yourself. So he came here, and we were here together, and he just left here about, a month? 3 weeks ago. So he was here for almost 2 months.
Oh, okay.
And it's not like, our condo is a decent size, but it's not a mansion. And people were like, how are you all getting along? Well, we just always have. So it's been a beautiful time with that. Been involved in quite a bit of training still with one district we work with at Cincinnati Public Schools. And we were able to finish our training with the teachers we've been working with throughout the year through Zoom. So we were able to do that, and also involved with Kiwanis still, even though, of course, of the shutdown, but through Zoom too.
So There you have it again. My story is very similar. I I had no choice but to go under quarantine immediately because I am considered to be in that high risk category because I need a kidney. So I had to stay indoors and behave myself, which was no problem. But after a while, I found myself looking forward to going to see a doctor. So I knew that we had been indoors just a little too long.
Right.
But we made the best of it, honestly. It was, and again, we've been able to accomplish a lot with the Kiwanis Club of Middletown. We still associate with the Middletown Club because that's the one we joined under. And I'm the incoming president for this fall. I've been the president before, and I've been the lieutenant governor for this division. So I've been heavily involved with Lebanon, Mason, Middletown, Oxford, and Fairfield clubs. And I love it.
Very good. Well, and I appreciated you introducing me to the presidents of those Kiwanis organizations because I think they might be interested in what we're doing with Think Regional and the summit, which is planned for April 23rd next year, 2021. And we will still have the theme of diversity, equity, and inclusion as the theme. But I've been more involved with Zoom meetings during the quarantine, and I have found that I've been able, like we're doing today, I've been able to see people that I haven't really been able to sit down and chat with like this for years. So this is one of those things that I probably will not give up once things are reopened. Now that I know how to use the Zoom apparatus and it's set up, and you get a certain amount of comfort in clicking on the links and so on and so forth. That I think I'll probably keep that. Keep that going with family and with friends and so forth. So I wondered if any of you have been, Mary Ellen said she's reading. She's in a book club reading. Herman, have you been? I know Herman and I share a couple periodicals because when I read on Facebook some article that I think, oh, who would appreciate seeing this article? And I've sent a couple articles to Herman, and he'll give me like the thumbs up signal, in return. So I know that we share some of those periodicals and some of those authors and so forth. But I am reading a book about Madeleine Albright. And it's her latest memoir, and she's quite an amazing woman. So I've been spending some time kind of digging into the Secretary of State work that she did and all the work that she's done, since that time as well. So Herman, what have you been reading? What have you been reading?
Let me just tell you about the book, and then I do read periodicals. You know that.
Right.
I'm rereading the autobiography of Harry Emerson Fosdick. He's, I think, one of the outstanding preachers of our generation. And I think I just needed to hear what he had to say about what was happening during World War II. And he was a pacifist. He was very progressive, I think is the word I want to use. And I needed to hear that because that's sort of who I am, and I needed to reinvent that in myself. So I've been reading that. I've read that autobiography more than once, but I decided I had to do it again during this time. So I'm picking that up, plus all the periodicals that I do read. You know that. Christian Century, Sojourners, just to name a couple, come to my mind real quick. And I get excited, quite frankly, when I feel like I'm reading something that's helped me be the man I need to be during this time that we're living in. And that's what I'm looking for. And can I give you a little fable?
Please.
I picked this up in my reading, by the way, of 6 men who were blind. Of course, none of them could see, and they came up to where there was an elephant. All right.
Okay.
And they wondered, what is that thing in front of us? All right. One felt the trunk of the elephant and said, oh, it feels like it's a big snake. And one felt the ear and said, oh my, it's a big fan. And another looked at the legs and said, no, it's a tree trunk. And another felt the side of the elephant, this big wall. Oh no, it's a wall. That's what it is. One felt the tail, and it's no, that's a rope. And the last, the tusk, and they felt that hard, smooth, and it looks like a spear maybe. The whole point I'm trying to get is simply this. In my reading, there are so many experiences that people are having to trying to put it into one focus. And these men who were blind, when they tried to put it into a focus, what did they do? They argued about what they had just felt was what was in front of them. And my whole point is simply this. We have to put into focus the whole thing. And that's what I try to look at in my reading. Not to energize over one thing over another, but to get into focus what's happening in our world today. And it's something that we don't need to argue about, but it's something we need to just face and be excited that we can do something about it.
Well, it certainly has shown us how connected the world is, isn't it?
Right. Exactly.
And it's kind of a reset in so many ways. You know, that all the posts I've been seeing on Facebook about how the pollution issue has really improved in so many countries, and that kind of thing, I think is really quite amazing and inspiring. Mary Ellen, in your travels, did you notice those kinds of things as well when you traveled to different areas of the world?
Do you mean different perspectives from
just
what
different perspectives, and just how much your thinking is much broader and open-minded because you've gotten to know more people of different backgrounds.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And the one thing, we travel with a company called Overseas Adventure Travel, and they're never more than 16. So what we love about it is that we get into the culture and we meet everyday people. We have meals with them. We almost always visit a school. We didn't get to in Vietnam because they had closed their schools very early. We learn about their religion. We eat their food. And we are in relationship with the people of that country. And then what you realize is that we're all the same. We love our children. We want our children to grow up in a safe environment, in a safe world. And what we do in one spot really does affect people on the other side of the world. And those connections, I wish everybody had that opportunity to have those connections, because they are just mind blowing, really.
Right.
They do grow your thoughts and your awareness and your consciousness, and they're very important.
I know recently I've been reading Rick Steves' comments on Facebook and so forth, and he's become, very, very vocal about, even though he's not able to take his groups traveling and so forth, just the importance of worldwide travel in terms of your appreciation, as you mentioned, of other cultures. And I remember in Middletown with MidFest International, I think that's what helped me to know more cultures, because I've done some traveling, some international traveling, but not nearly as much as you have, Mary Ellen. But with Midfest, each year there was a focus on a different country that had business interests in Southwest Ohio. So the ambassador or representatives of the ambassador and their arts and just, food and just et cetera, they would all come to Middletown. So you had an opportunity to actually learn about the country because it was brought to you. Remember that, Marsh twins?
Yes. We were host families, if you will, a couple of different times. I really enjoyed that. We had to send our dog to our friend's house. It didn't work out with them, but we enjoyed that.
Where were the guests from? What countries? Do you remember?
West Africa. Yeah, and
Brazil.
In Brazil, or New Zealand. West Africa, New Zealand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, but with the West Africans, our dog didn't like men. We had to get 2 men in the end because everything else was filled up, and our dog Max wasn't going for it, so we had to ship him off for a couple of weeks. But it was a great experience.
Well, you talk about your interactions with Kiwanis and so on, and your travels. What have you found? Kind of the connectedness and so on. And what do you share during your cultural diversity training? I'd be interested in knowing some of the things that you focus on in the schools.
Okay. Well, I'll talk about our international travels, not extensive as well, but we were blessed when we retired, that coming up on 7 years ago. Marla and I, we took our family to Paris and London, and I quickly, had to learn to practice what I had been preaching, that you have to learn to be uncomfortable sometimes in a different situation and be the only one, if you will. Mm-hmm. I would find people and just finding myself being so surprised, like, oh, they speak English, or I don't.
Or when it's just when we landed in London, we found out they were speaking English, but we couldn't understand them.
So I had to appreciate the difference and put myself into that and immerse myself into their culture, understanding that I was going into their homeland and so forth. So that was very enjoyable. What we do with cultural competency, I could speak on cultural competency all day long, so I'm only going to talk for a couple minutes. But cultural competency is about appreciating. Well, diversity is about appreciating the differences. Okay, cultural competency takes the work a little bit deeper. It's about appreciating the difference that difference makes. If you think about that, the difference makes what everybody brings to the table, the voices that are there, the voices that are not there, looking at the multiple perspectives. So like right now, Marla and I were sitting here thinking, what were we going to say if you asked, what are we reading? Because we're constantly right now writing, because we're writing a new curriculum. That's what we do a lot. We've been fortunate to be able to, to use our work. So right now we are writing a new curriculum for schools. We've been involved in some schools for quite a while, and one for Lebanon, being in Warren County, and Kings, and they are really immersed in this work. Also the Warren County Career Center. And so we've been involved with teachers from the various districts, but so we're taking the work a little bit deeper. So right now we're working on a piece that's focusing on biases, race, racism, and privilege. And cultural competency is not just like for educators, it's for everyone in your living, learning, and working environments. So we write stories that help people to relate, to see through everything through a lens of equity. So we've written that piece as well. And we're also focusing right now on understanding, appreciating multiple perspectives and the different values that people bring to the table.
Wow.
Very good. Well, I mean, I should have given you the choice. What have you been reading, or what have you been writing? And clearly, you've been in the writing mode. So we'll we'll be reading your writing. So that was
I do definitely want to read the book that Mary Ellen was just talking about, and then I forgot the author of this other book called White Fragility. I keep hearing great things about that too. So
Yeah, I haven't read that one.
okay, yeah,
very good, very good. Well, just we could go on and on, chatting about a variety of topics, but possibly in closing, what would you share with our audience in terms of the title of our program, Feelin Good? What is something that inspires you, or those times when you feel most challenged, and then you want something uplifting? What is it that brings you that kind of feeling? For instance, for me, oftentimes it's music.
Mm-hmm.
How about Herman? How about you?
Okay. Okay, music does that for me. I like classical music, and I listen to it very, very often, particularly when I get up in the morning. It does something to start my day in a real way. It really does. And so music would be one of the things that is very helpful for me. Another thing that I enjoy so much, and you're going to laugh at this, I have my little golf cart here at Otterbein. and I like to get in that little golf cart and just drive around the campus and view what's happening. Everything is sort of quiet, but this brings to note those things that are still happening, that are good, that I'm glad to be here, and I celebrate that. So I get my little golf cart and do that. So that makes me feel extremely good as I just drive around campus. And as I said, music, though, is terribly important to me. If I can just say this, years ago when my wife had her stroke and she didn't know me, she didn't know she was married, didn't know she had children, and she was lying there in the bed, I would hum just tunes, and she would hum those tunes back. And the music kept us together until finally she began to coordinate and work through this terrible stroke that she had years ago. So music has always been important to me, and I celebrate that as long as my little jogging with my golf cart. Thank you. It's a good day. We celebrate and give thanks.
Oh, thank you so much, Herman. How about you, Mary Ellen?
Well, of course, as a retired music teacher, I would have to say music is very important to me, and I really do miss the community that that music brings. But people have been so creative by bringing instrumental pieces, ensemble pieces. How they do this coordination from different points is amazing, but that brings me great joy. And also that music community has included Herman in my experiences, knowing him from the Otterbein Choir, and that's delightful. So thank you, Herman. What really brings me great joy is being outside in the sunshine. Not when it's 95, don't misunderstand. But a day like today when it's crystal clear and you can breathe, and I love that. So that's part of my joy in working in my gardens and working outside. I could do that, well, not as many hours a day as I once could, but it just, maybe those are my farm roots that I like to work in the dirt, but that brings me joy. And I'm just so grateful that I have a husband who is a great friend, and we enjoy each other, and it would be so lonely if I were here by myself, but I never feel that. Every day I have a purpose of some kind, and if that day I wake up and I don't know what it is, I make one up.
There you go.
So
there you go.
I always try to have a purpose for the day.
Very good, very good. And Monica and Marla.
I resonate with so much what was said by Herman and Mary Ellen. I feel like you really have to find your happy place. And for me, my happy place is just out that door on the deck. I love sitting outside. I love listening to my Pandora and reflecting. We lost our mom last July 4th. So I think a lot about her. We lost our father 15 years ago now. So I think about the both of them, and they were both really heavy on my heart a few weeks ago. So we drove through the cemetery, and when I got back home, I was thinking about their favorite music, their favorite songs. And don't you know, back to back, my father's favorite song played, and then one of my mother's favorites played right after that.
Oh, my.
So it gave me great peace. So I think music is a healer. I really do. And I just love sitting outside. I'm nosy as can be. So is, never mind, I won't say but anyway, I love it.
Very good.
And what makes me feel good is, this is going to sound really odd, I think, but Marla would understand, is to be organized in the house. I'm obsessed with keeping an organized pantry.
It's beautiful.
It really is. And my gift closet. I'm obsessed about keeping it organized. So when I know that things are everything is put in place where I want it to be, then I feel good. That's about it. I'm not an outdoor person.
Our brother will drive 6 hours to go grocery shopping in this house.
Right. That's true. That's true. So.
Well, very good. Well, I appreciate all of you sharing your feeling good moments, and I hope that for those at home who are watching, we know these are challenging times, but we hope that you've been inspired today by my friends who want to, along with me, want to wish you well, and we hope that you are feeling good. Bye for now.